Black Lives Matter's national organization at risk of going bankrupt after its finances plunged millions into the red last year.
A new piece in the New York Magazine looks into some pretty worrisome financial issues involved in BLM, Black Lives Matter.
So the people running BLM have become millionaires while BLM itself has lost $60 million and is going bankrupt. Let's talk about it. Black Lives Matter is an organization that came to prominence in the wake of George Floyd's death. Police officer Derek Chauvin was convicted of murdering him during an arrest that went wrong. Now, this woman, Patrisse Cullors, is credited with co-founding the Black Lives Matter group in 2013. The group came together after the killing of Trayvon Martin and the acquittal of George Zimmerman. So the birthday of Black Lives Matter is July 13th, and this tweet is the tweet that set everything in motion. So now let's just be honest with the situation. This group was never anything serious, and we can tell that from its tax returns in 2019. So here's the group's 2019 tax returns. Now in part one, where it says revenues, expenses, and changes of net assets or fund balances, this is where you're supposed to put if you made any money and what you did with it. And as you can see at the end, it's all zero. Matter of fact, this tax return is so bad, the whole tax return is zero. They handed in essentially a blank tax return. Now, here where it says list of officers, you see Patrisse Cullors. She is the executive director at this time. They made absolutely no money. All the rest of the pages are essentially blank. See, they even signed their name to this. This is it. It's all zero. They had absolutely no money, no assets, or at least that's what this tax return is saying. They had nothing. These pages are empty. Matter of fact, we have to get to the end, and that's where they have to put in what the company's about, and that's all they do. That's it. Essentially, the highest number on his tax return is zero. It's like, that's it. They've made nothing. They have nothing. Absolutely nothing. But next year, they'll have $90 million cash. Now, this was the last tax return that was going to look like this because George Floyd happened. Now, after the George Floyd incident, BLM raised over $90 million in less than a year. And Patrisse Cullors, who you saw was the executive director when they had absolutely not a dime to spend, she's still the executive director, and now they have $90 million to spend.
Contrary to what, has been reported, much of the funding that came in was from individual donors. That was a lot of white guilt money. There's a lot of white folks being like, we just got to put the money.
That's that good guilt. $90 million of guilt. That's a lot of good. that's that good guilt.
Now, when you go to the Black Lives Matter donation page, it says this is where your donation is going to. Our movement is dedicated to ending state-sanctioned violence, liberating Black people, and ending white supremacy forever. Donate to fuel the movement. So now we know what we're giving the money for. But what did they actually do with the money? Now, Patrisse Cullors, who was executive director, had experience as a teacher of art before this, and BLM decided to pay her $120,000 in consulting fees. Now, this looks like was the start of the money train leaving the station. BLM also decided that Cullors' entire family needed to be on the payroll, and they needed to pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars to do work for them. For instance, Cullors' brother, sister, mother, even her baby's father, all of them getting money through BLM. Here's some examples. This is Paul Cullors, brother of Patrisse Cullors. He's BLM's head of security, and before he got this job, he was a graffiti artist in New York City. Now, the New York Post reports that he gets an annual salary of $139,000 a year. BLM also hires his security company, Cullors Security LLC. In 2020, BLM paid the company $840,000 for Paul Cullors' security professionalism. He also made another $756,000 in 2021. Now, the conflict of interest was so wild here, they even listed it on the tax returns where you're supposed to list it, but here's what they put: business transactions involving interested parties, name Paul Cullors, Cullors Protection LLC, relationship between interested parties and the organization, family member of founder and executive director, and doesn't forget he's a board member too. Description of transaction, professional security services. And remember, before this, he was a graffiti artist. So before we break down the rest of this video, here's a quick word from our video sponsor. Now, here on my channel, we focus in on how the media is not reporting certain stories factually. For instance, we talked about Breonna Taylor, the U.S. women's soccer team, and even recently the NYC City Bike Karen story. Now, with so many news sources out there, it's hard to figure out which sources are actually good and which sources are bad. That's why I personally use Ground News. Now with Ground News, for every story that you get a quick visual breakdown of the news outlets covering it and their political biases, which I think is extremely important. Another important feature they give you is how factual the source is, which entity owns the source, and which countries are covering the story. Now, Ground News also allows you to compare headlines. You can sort them by things like factuality, location, and biases. You can follow specific topics like Jordan Neely, Bud Light, Trump, Meghan Markle, etc. I really like what's known as the blind spot page. It shows you articles that are underreported and overreported by a source, mainly from a specific political affiliation, making it a blind spot for the opposite side. So, when you watch Fox News, they only cover certain stories, and watch CNN, they only cover certain stories. It allows you to see, who's covering what stories and who's not covering certain stories. Now, if you're interested in understanding the biases of the media, go to ground.news/Nate to stay fully informed on breaking news, compare coverage, and avoid the media bias. Sign up for free or subscribe for unlimited access if you want to support the mission and find it as useful as I do. Now, you can also download the app from the App Store or Google Play Store. And last but not least, there's also a Chrome extension. So when you're looking for stories, you can instantly see what the political biases of the stories are. Now, if you like what you hear, don't forget, click on the link in the description for ground.news/Nate to stay fully informed. Now, Patrice's baby daddy was up next. His company, Trap Heels LLC, got $969,000 from BLM. Oh yeah, and Trap Hills was also paid $150,000 for a November 2020 live stream of election night. Here's Patrice also talking about how her mom and sister are getting paid by BLM.
Is there any truth to the reports that your family has been hired to work at the property that was purchased by Black Lives Matter?
While my brother is the head of security and my mom and sister did work at the property, there are also dozens of other people who work in the organization that are Black folks and are doing amazing work. It's not like I literally, opened up the bank accounts and was like, I'm bringing all my family and friends in.
Well, you pretty much did bring all of your family, unless you're saying your sister, your brother, your mother, your baby's father, and your spouse are not part of your family, because those were the people who were getting paid. Now, to remember the question the interviewer asked Patrice about the property, listen again.
Is there any truth to the reports that your family has been hired to work at the property that was purchased by Black Lives Matter?
Well, the property they're talking about is a $6 million mansion that was purchased with donation money from BLM. Patrice even shot a YouTube video and put it on her channel. Check it out. Now, I don't know how this is in any way dedicated to ending state-sanctioned violence, liberating Black people, and ending white supremacy forever. It looks like they're having a really good time in a really expensive house. This is just the tip of the iceberg, people. BLM board members have started consulting firms all over the place, and these consulting firms are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars from BLM. For instance, Bowers Consulting Firm is run by a current board member, Sholama Bowers. He was the consultant of all consultants. His consulting costs were $2 million. $2 million. This guy's the greatest consultant ever. And then there's a lawsuit that accused him of siphoning off tens of millions of dollars this way. Here it is. The new leader of the National Black Lives Matter nonprofit siphoned more than $10 million in fees from donors to pay his consulting firm, according to the lawsuit. Now, we can go through these examples all day, but obviously the finances are funny and things just don't add up. Now, let's think about this as rational people. They raised $90 million. As of today, $60 million of that is gone like a fart in a wind. They only have about roughly $33 million left. So they went from operating from no money, remember they weren't making anything. We saw a blank tax return, to almost spending $60 million in 2 years. Now, because of all this shadiness, Black Lives Matter had to stop online fundraising after California and Washington threatened legal action against the not-for-profit. Soon after, Colors resigned because obviously the money was looking a little funny. This was after her family had obviously made millions of dollars in salaries, consulting fees, and security fees. Before she left, Colors also had a spending spree where she bought $3.2 million in property. Now, she claims that none of that came from the donations. That was money that she earned from book deals and things of that nature. So at the end of the day, we have Colors, who has paid her brother over $1.6 million, her sister, her mother, her baby's daddy even got millions of dollars. And we're supposed to think everything's on the up and up. Remember, all these people got hundreds of thousands of dollars and some didn't even have experience in what they were getting paid to do. So here's my opinion on the situation. This BLM organization is a scam. It's my opinion that the people who run it have been enriching themselves in their pockets over time. Now, they may have been doing it 100% legally, but they've been taking care of themselves and claiming racism if anyone challenges their version of events. Like when they were called out for buying a $6 million mansion, whoever called them out was considered a racist. Now, Black Lives Matter is on the brink of bankruptcy and it's being called out for shady finances. Here's the Black enterprise. Now, you may have heard the saying, a fool and his money are soon parted. And I think that's exactly what happened here with this BLM situation. So tell me in the comment section, what do you think about this whole situation? Are you like me, who was shocked that a group that had earned no money, they raised not a dime the previous year, then gets $90 million and spent $60 million in 2 years? Like, that's a lot of money to spend. And what do you think about, Patrice and her family obligations? Brother making money. Everybody seems to be making some money. Do you think they've crossed a little line here? Now, as of right now, we don't know if anybody did anything inappropriate, but we will keep our eyes on the story. And with that said, my name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'll see you next time. Peace.